Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to PyLadies Berlin. So it's been a while since I did this whole presentation and welcoming, so I might be a little bit rusty, but let's go. Oh, so sorry. Okay.
Yes.
What we have today is that we will have welcome by Kraken. We will have a short talk from our host, and we will start our talk evening at 7:30 with another bot story. Valentine's gift to my girlfriend using GitHub Copilot workspaces, and at 8 we will have our second talk, how I use generative AI and why I think you should too. And half an hour later, we will have our third talk today. It's quite packed. Prompt engineering, emerging techniques from recent research papers. And we will have a wrap-up session, and then we will see you in other events. Okay, so PyLadies is around the world. It's not just in Berlin. We have a couple, not chapters, but I think, chapters in everywhere. I can't read them here, sorry. We are international first, and we aim to provide friendly support network to.
This is your online audience.
Oh. Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, thank you. So we have to provide. We aim to provide a friendly support network for gender minorities and try to promote educated advances on a diverse Python community through education and events and And we are, again, not in Berlin only. We attract a couple important and very interesting speakers. You can find us all around the world, Edinburgh, Chicago, Berlin, Prague, and everywhere. And we PyLadies Berlin was founded in 2013 with almost 3,000 members. Currently in Germany, we are 4 chapters, but it's always growing. And we have code of conduct, and we don't tolerate any disrespectful or any non-inclusive behavior. So if you ever experience such attitude, you can contact us. We will do whatever is necessary. We take photos during the event. If you don't want to, you can come up to us, or you can just say now by like raising your hand. And we have a lot of events. What's coming in July 24th? There's Berlin event happening, and July 25th there is ML Ops community event, and in August there's Python user group events. You can find all of these on our meetup page. And there is also our August talk, member talk evening in PyLadies Berlin. You can create your own avatar. It's quite cute. If you go through, I think we had a QR code, but you can still get to this page if you go to the meetup page or Slack. So we do regular monthly meetups or full-day workshops, set up events to get started with coding. We try to connect people with companies. You can do your networking here as well. And anything you can dream and make happen, we try to aim for that. You can join our Slack channel. We have a Slack workspace, but it's for the whole PyLadies chapters all around the world, so you can find the City Berlin events once you join. And we're always looking for new speakers. We would love to have you as our speaker. We would love to host you. If you want to speak at one of the PyLadies events, you can simply scan this QR code, or you can reach out to one of us, or you can just send an email. You can do, many things. It doesn't have to be just a technical talk. You can also give some sort of a lightning talk, like maximum 5 minutes if you want to. There are a couple topics that are quite interesting for people, like presentation skills, You can also say like salary negotiations. I remember we did like a CV workshop. We went through what your CV needs to look like, or what does a good CV look like. We did an interview preparation workshop, for example. So there are a lot of non-technical talks that you can go through as well, as long as you want. You can also get involved not only by giving a talk, but also help us organize all of these workshops, all of these events. And you can also be one of the coaches on our workshops. On the first Monday on every month, we do a community organizers huddle on Google Meet. You can join and take part of the decision-making process. You can raise opinions. You can try to bring your idea to the table. It's where ideas make to the production. You're welcome to join. And there's also a call to contribute. A team, this is the first time I'm seeing the slide, so sorry. A team of 4 researchers based in Switzerland and 30 international developers are modifying ClearCode's PyLadies Berlin in an experiment to study social influence and how it affects your adoption of protective health behaviors. You can contribute by joining the organization, I think. So sorry. Okay, we also have like a couple raffles, community partnership with various conferences and events. And CodeMotion is one of them. In Milan, there will be a CodeMotion conference in October, and there are giving diversity and inclusion sponsorship. So if you're scholarship, and if you're interested, you can scan the QR code and you can send your request by September. So moving on. We also have 2 returning PSF board members. Congratulations to them. One of them is Tanya Alard and Juan Bay, and one new board member, Christian Perez. I hope I pronounced it okay. Yes, he's right here. Yeah, he's right here. Our first speaker is Ana Paula Gomez. I hope I pronounced it right again. So sorry if not. Senior software engineering, and currently she is doing her PhD at Center of Artificial Intelligence in Public Health Research at the Robert Koch Institute. Do we do the speaking now, or should I go through all of them? Okay. Our second speaker is Jessica Green. Thank you. Senior ML engineer at Ecclesia, purchasing trees and planting trees, which is quite cool. Former coffee roaster and camera assistant, winner of the Outstanding PyLadies Award 2024, which is well deserved, I can say. Our third speaker is Katja Witzfeld. Machine learning engineer, visiting from San Francisco. She has worked at UC, YC, and A16, but I can't become Valley startup. I can't even pronounce it. And has a master's in data science and machine learning from USC. Okay. You can get in touch with us by, again, scanning this QR code. You can give us a feedback. You can raise any questions or get in touch with the organizers committee again, or you can become a member of PyLadies Berlin. Okay. I think that was it. That was it.
Yes, I introduced Kraken. If I get it Yes. Cool. Yes, I will introduce Kraken, and I'll be quick so that we can start with the talks quickly. So this is us here today. So quite a lot of us. So it will be easy to find us if you have questions or just want to talk to us. Yeah, I'm Katharina, a Django backend dev, and my way there wasn't straight. I studied bioinformatics and then worked in the lab and on a ship for a little before going to work at university and falling in love with Python there. Then Django Girls made me discover Django, and the PyLadies community gave me the confidence to become a Django developer. And after 7 years of doing that, I still love it. Yeah, but what are all these octopi everywhere here? It's Octopus Energy was founded in 2015 in the UK as an energy retailer, and to contribute to the fight against climate change. The idea behind it being that green energy can only take over and replace fossil fuel when it's reliable and cheap. Kraken is the tech arm, or as we obviously say, tentacle of Octopus Energy. But the software is also used by other energy retailers and for other utilities like water or broadband. Yeah, we are both in the same group and work closely together, of course, still. So, Kraken enables energy retailers and customers, for example, to use flexible time of use tariffs, so that when the energy is most abundant, so when the sun is shining or the wind is blowing, it's also cheaper. And incentivizing people to then use energy when there's like a lot of energy on the grid. Yeah, and we have more things around that also incentivizing that. For example, the saving hours where people actually get money back when they don't use energy during the hours where there isn't a lot of energy on the grid. Then there's also solutions to charge cars or power heat pumps when the energy is cheap, and much more. At the heart of it all is one giant platform for billing, payments, meter data management, CRM, and more. Yeah, giant means 5.5 million lines of code and 50,000 automated tests, around 500 developers only doing that. And as we have continuous deployments, we have around 150 each day, more on Monday than on Friday, obviously. And these deployments go out to 54 million customers globally. So yeah, I think that's quite crazy, but yeah. And all in all, we have 1,250 employees at Kraken. Probably by now it's more because the numbers grow old very quickly. 29% of these are women globally, and in Germany it's more like 20%. While that's not great and also far from parity, I think we probably and unluckily have all seen worse. Yeah, we also have initiatives to try and better that number. One is Kraken Ladies, which I mean, you know where the name comes from, probably. It was founded in 2022 near the international or around International Women's Day because we wanted something more than just a social media post. And it brings together now women from different parts of our business by global and regional meetings and a mentorship program. We also have working groups with that to grow our community, provide training and support for our staff, and bringing more women into tech and leadership positions. Then we also just started Kraken Academy this year. It's our own training bootcamp for entry-level developers, and the main objective is to give people that maybe didn't have the chance before opportunities with us. It's also soon to be brought to mainland Europe, so also Germany. And that's it already. Thank you.
Okay, nice. Hello, everybody. My name is Anna. So that's me on Twitter. In case you want to talk about the content of this talk and the other related stuff. So turns out that the title of this talk became quite big. So it's another bot story, a Valentine's Day gift to my girlfriend using GitHub Copilot Workspace. So I hope that's fun. So, and who we are. So that's me, as you can see, and that is Isabella, my girlfriend. So that's her first pilots meetup. So I'm happy that she's here with us. So, and a little bit about me. I'm a Brazilian software engineer, and the Brazilian just in the beginning is an important detail for my next slide. So keep that in mind. Um, Actually, in the beginning of my career, I wanted to be a lawyer, but yeah, life by mistake. I became a software engineer, and then it became like a passion of my life, coding. So and then I became an open knowledge activist. I'm quite involved with open source. It's something that I really enjoy doing it. Um, I'm not an academic person like for like career, I would say, but currently I'm doing my PhD in artificial intelligence for public health at the Robert Koch Institute. So this is the first year of my PhD, and there I'm investigating like the usage of unsupervised learning for surveillance indicators. Maybe it sounds quite fancy, but I knew nothing about public health. But the idea is basically identify diseases from symptoms and so on. So it's quite interesting. So if you are interested in that and synthetic data, clustering and stuff, so we can chat about it. So, and this is really a love story. um, Actually, a love story of the real life. So we decided to get married, and I don't know how many of you decide to throw a marriage party. It's super expensive, and we basically have money for nothing. So, and the Valentine's Day in Brazil is on the 12th of June. So, and this year we decided that we wouldn't spend. I mean, minus €5 actually on gifts, and then we decided that we would like do something with our hands to each other. Okay, that sounds a bit weird. Sorry. um, and then I was like out of ideas. I was like super busy in this weekend. I was like, oh my god, what I'm gonna do? I'm no good in drawing or with, I don't know, doing origami and stuff. Just like shit. And then back in the days, I just received access to GitHub Copilot Workspace. And then I was dying to try it out, but I haven't had the chance to do it at the PhD because I'm in that phase where we have to read a lot of papers and then write a review paper. So no fun. And then yeah, I decided that I wanted to do something fun for her that would involve coding, and yeah, and I would do this with GitHub Copilot. Yeah, and then I would have like less than 24 hours to do this. So this would be like a really interesting constraint for AI too, right? So, and one thing that I really like to say to people that have like difficulties to start side projects. I'm really into side projects. I'm this person that's addicted to buying new domains. I don't know if you ever heard of someone like this. Um, but I think that a nice balance, like a nice idea to something to have in mind to start side projects and to finish it is like finding something fun and something that you believed in. So nothing something that's like really big and something that's going to be super hard, but like a nice balance between something that you can do but with a mix of I don't know how, but I have an idea, and then it's gonna it will have higher chance of actually working. So, and then I started thinking about the project requirements. So it would have to be a bot in a platform that we use often, that would be easy to deploy, and that would be for free. After all, the budget was quite limited, as you already know. So Telegram would be our platform of choice. So I would need to do it in less than 24 hours. So the time was really an issue. And it would remind her how much I care about her. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the business requirements. So yeah, I want the thing to, I don't know, I want to show random photos, favorite stuff, send some audios. I want something that would be easy to just throw her of material there. Yeah, anyways. I want something like this. But I had no idea how this thing, like this new tool worked, They were like, yeah, it was supposed to be easy, right? So what could go wrong? So yeah, people say that AI can do this for me, right? I saw all these videos about deving and all the code generation and everyday. I mean, anyone that's in development, especially in the AI or machine learning field, knows that every other day things are just like developing, and there are new papers out there that are outperforming, and it's crazy to keep up. So it gotta work. I don't know. Can we show a video? I don't know if it's gonna show for the people at home, but I mean, it's 1 minute. But the most important thing is like seeing the content, and I hope that you here can see it as well. So, and then I watched this video and got me really hooked about Copilot Workspace. I already had tried it out as a plugin in IntelliJ, but I was just asking like direct questions, like how to center this div, how to, I don't know, get unique stuff from a dictionary or simple stuff. And the one thing that I really liked about it was that um, instead of just starting from the point of view of the code, it starts from the definition of the problem. So you start from the product to describe what you want, and then the tool will show you the specification, what it understood, and then you have to confirm, and then you will basically iterate with it. So it's more of a pair programming style with the tool, and I really like this approach when it comes to AI tools. Yeah, but I didn't want to spend much time talking here. I talked more than I thought that I would, and I wanted to show you the repository and implement with you a new feature for this bot live, and I just hope it works. But let me change the screen so the others at home can see. Oh, it was showing. It's showing my whole Chrome, my Firefox, right? Okay, sorry, got nervous. So this is the repository. I haven't done anything here in regards to, I didn't add in any documentation or anything in regard to the code structure. Everything that's in here was generated by Copilot Workspace. Is bot.py. It is quite simple. So let's go to here. Yes. Thank you. Can you see it now? Nice. So it's basically in the main method, it will check if it has like the token from Telegram. It will add a handler called start, so she can type /start, and then it will show like the menu. So the menu is in here. That's like, this is a joke. It's like to send an audio, and this is our pictures, and then it will show a picture of us. And I'm showing the code to you because we'll basically ask the tool to change the code to us. When I started using it, GitHub haven't had any context buttons in the issue, but now it seems that it has. So what I mean by that? So Copilot workspace, basically I would have to go to this address anytime that I wanted to use it. So, oops. So in here, there are my sessions. So, and then if I wanted to add or implement anything new, I would have to come here and then type the name of the repository. Oops, this is none of my repositories, but a lot of girlfriends' repositories. Okay, this is mine. I'm gonna change spot. And then in here, I would describe the task. But it's also possible to, currently it's also possible to create an issue here, and then it will appear on the right side on the development, a new button to create the new session, and it will go to this page. So for today, we are going to add a new feature in using Copilot Workspace, and then Isabella will, will tell you if it worked or not, because after the code is merged, it is deployed automatically. So we have here a workflow connected to, that's deploying to Fly.io. So whenever a new commit is pushed to main, so you see if it worked or not. Okay, I'm nervous about it. And so, and then she's always asking me to implement something new. Yeah, it's just doing two things at the same time. It's gonna be fun. So, and what I prepared for today, and I haven't tested it before, so it's gonna be pure emotion. It's gonna be sending her a song. So I will ask Copilot to, from a list of songs, send her a random song. So so I would like, so pardon my English, is not the greatest, but I have here the list of songs. So I will increase here. Grimly, I just started. Come on. Damn. So I would like to add a new menu called Musiquinha. That's like little song of Portuguese in Portuguese. So I have to add an emoji because I wanted to have the same pattern of the others. I'd like to add a new menu called Musiquinha that will pick a random song from the list below and send it. So am I forgetting something? Oh, damn. Do you think that I should add something else to this feature? If she complains, it's going to be on you. Sorry? Auto. Try to autoplay. Check if it is possible to autoplay with Telegram. With the Telegram. All right. Let's see what. Yeah, whatever. Okay, save. This is the description. So this is where the magic happens because this is quite nice. It will show the current state of your repository. So yeah, there is no menu called Musiquinha in the current code. No, it's not there. And then it will be a little bit verbose, but it's really nice because you have an overview of what is going on in your code. So, and then in here you see like the proposed things like, yes, there is now a new menu called Musiquinha. The new menu option, Musiquinha, picks a random song from the provided list, blah, blah, blah. The menu, the README file has been updated to include instructions for using the new Musiquinha menu. You can see that I haven't mentioned anything about adding a README, but I could also add a new item here saying, yeah, please add a unit test for it because I haven't added any test for it. It's like, yeah, a garantia sou Joe, right? Okay, generate a new plan. So because I'm happy with this, but I could change or add things, change the order as well. So it's quite nice. And also I could view the references here, like all the files that it used as a reference. So, and then it starts to do a plan of what it will be changed in each file. So a bit of a repetition, but now connected to each file. I don't have any new notes, so okay. Yeah. Actually, I have something in mind. Regenerate specification. Oops, stop. Can I say something? Proposed a new file with these songs is created because I want the new songs to be in a file, not in the Python code. All right. Okay, the plan's been updated. Okay, this is not what I meant. I want a text. So read the file of songs. Yeah. Oops. Edit file item. Update. Cool. Implement selected files. So now they have a really nice animation of what's going on. So, oh. So now you can see the code that I showed you before. Two options that were in the main menu. So now we have Musiquinha. And yeah, this part didn't work great as I meant to, but still it's gonna work. So, and I could come here and then complain about the implementation, expand implementation. And then I could open terminal, open code space, and ask to do the way I wanted. But you see, the songs.text was created in here. But it's not being used here. So.
Is it because of the order in which you gave the instructions?
Yeah, maybe. So read the file songs in, yeah, you see it was not implemented here. Yeah, but probably I should have said this before, right? Like in the, yeah. But yeah, I will let it be. Let's see, for the sake of the time, I will create a request here. I mean, I will click on the button. And then in here it will have like a description of what it was done and a link to this session. Okay, so we have a pull request now. So we have musiquinha, list of songs. The list of songs is here, so the code seems fine. You know, I will just delete this since this is not being used anyway. So here, delete this song. Yeah, whatever. And now I will merge this. Okay. And now we wait a bit until it's deployed. And I'll go back to the slides while I just say my final words. In the meanwhile, it's going to deploy, and I will see if the option is available for Isabella. I'm nervous. So it's really nice, but it hallucinates. For instance, whenever you ask it to create like workflows, um, when you have to implement workflows like for GitHub Actions or for any pipeline, it's really a pain in the ass because sometimes the thing is not well documented, and then you have to do a lot of trial and error. The thing is, these kind of tools will assemble everything perfectly. It won't have any like runtime error, but it will suggest things that don't exist, like libraries, like actions, for instance. And that happened to me with these projects. And sometimes only humans will be able to create certain things like crosswords. So one of these days, a friend of mine, she was involved in a gift for her girlfriend as well. We are romantics, what can I say? And then she wanted to create a crossword for her girlfriend. And she tried to do it with AI. And it wasn't possible because it's a really complex problem. And so because it cannot handle with the columns and rows. So if you start to asking questions like ask to AI to put together the numbers, it won't be able to do it as good as like generating text or summarizing stuff. I mean, generative AI. So, but Google claims that now it's possible to create crosswords with Gemini. Since last week, I haven't tried. So, but we tried to do it with AI. It wasn't possible. So, and because of this project, I learned that there are human beings that are specialized in creating crosswords, which is fascinating. So, and we always have to question the decisions and not take its knowledge for granted. And so, and this is something super important because at this point in time, we are getting used to these kind of tools, and maybe it's going to be easier to just go with the flow and maybe lose our craftsmanship spirit. And maybe the code will become too complex, or maybe it will take some decisions that it will cost really, it will have high cost for us in the future. Yeah. So, and I also wanted to say that I feared for my job as a software engineer. And I've been doing this for almost, I don't know, 11 or 12 years now. And yeah, and I felt this, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do after I finish my PhD in AI? It was like, isn't it weird to have to think about it? But I mean, what I realized is there is nothing that we can do now to stop this, but other than embrace this and learn how to navigate and use our the things that make us human, you know, our natural intelligence, our way to do things, you know. So far, we have a lot of robots that are capable of delivering things, of driving, but no robot is capable of loading the dishes, if you know what I mean. So, there are some things that only human beings are capable of doing, and I think that we have to find these gaps in the use of special skills on it. So, but before I go, let's see if this thing is working. Oops, let me check if the deploy worked.
Is it possible to show it?
Nice. I will show on the camera. So, please, go ahead. It's working. Sweating bucks. So yeah, that's me on Twitter. Feel free to drop me a message, or if you want to keep on talking. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I will just put myself onto stream there. Okay, good. Hopefully that's working. If anybody would be so kind and is watching live to just give me a heads up if for some reason you're not able to see what's happening. But I think we're good. Okay, and I think this was such a good segue for what I wanted to talk about. It's almost like I planned this meetup. I did. So I'm really thankful, Anna Paula. This is such a great way, I think, to kick off a discussion talking about generative AI. And when I wanted to put together a meetup on the topic, I think for me, one of the things I came across was there's lots of people who were interested in this, but felt a little bit maybe intimidated, a little bit unsure about what it could do. They heard lots of positives, they maybe heard lots of negatives, and they were kind of thinking like, oh, I don't know, like, can I use this? And I really wanted to kind of talk about how I use it, because I use it all the time. And I really liked what you said is I use it for really simple stuff too. I'm like, I don't remember all this syntax. I'm just going to like get it as quickly as possible so I can keep coding. I think there can be like this sense of it's cheating or we shouldn't be doing that. And I think it's BS. I think we should be doing that. I think we should be embracing it. We should be informed about what we're embracing, of course, but I think there's a lot of power in there, and you've demonstrated that wonderfully in a really awesome way, I think. So maybe just before I get into it fully, I'd be curious, who here has already used some sort of generative AI? So it could be image, could be text generation. So quite a lot of people in the room. And I think that's great because I think it's a tool that as developers or people training up to be developers, it's going to be something that is going to be around. As Anna Paula said, the wave is coming, and it is something I think we need to understand. So it's not just the motivation of pure curiosity, although I think that's a good one. I think there's a lot of business reasons for us as programmers to want to look into this technology. So there is a lot of aggressive, probably being the right word here, pursuing of integrating AI into almost everything, even when it really maybe isn't necessary. And even maybe when it's just in the name and not even in the product. But there you go. Like, it's so many firms that are across the different spectrums of industries who are buying into this at a quick rate. And it's also affecting the job market. I think we all are aware that the job market in the last years has been quite different to the few years before. It's especially difficult right now if you're trying to get into the industry. But even as a seasoned engineer, it's more difficult. It's taking people longer to get positions. And also, a lot of those top paying jobs now expect you to know AI. So my name's Jessica. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior machine learning engineer at Koja, which is the search engine for a better planet, if you've not heard of us. You'll find me kind of on off all of these social medias. I'm kind of one of those people that like committed hard at the start and then realized it was not sustainable for me whatsoever. But if you reach out, I will try get back to you. I'm a chapter lead here with PyLadies Berlin, and really grateful to the other PyLadies members here who keep our chapter and community going so strong. You've seen quite a few of them helping out today. And I'm also a board member at the Python Software Verband, which is similar to the Python Software Foundation, but it focuses on the German-speaking regions. And if I'm not doing my day job, I like to do coffee, Lego AI, Internet Thing project. I'm interested in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and I like climate science as well. So if you're interested in any of those things, feel free to reach out to me. And I want to tell you a little bit first about my story, because I'm coming at this from a slightly different angle to a lot of people in the industry. Not everyone, but a lot of people. So I actually used to roast coffee for a living. So I used to stand behind a coffee machine, lift huge sacks of coffee into it, and like spend the whole day next to basically a furnace that's really loud, probably damaged my hearing, but get to taste like super delicious coffee all the time and hear about all these super interesting projects. And at some point, although I do love coffee and I think the specialty coffee industry is really worth spending time in, I realized I needed to make a switch for myself. And I switched over into programming. So I'm aware this probably will not be the biggest for folks at the back, but I kind of wanted to map out about how I've worked towards being an ML engineer, because it was actually always my interest. So right when I like kind of started out and first quit my job, and then I spent 6 months basically messing around because it's Berlin, right? And it was summertime. But then after that, and I kind of got serious about things, I knew I wanted to get into programming, but I also knew I was really interested in this field of machine learning and AI specifically. But I was pretty unconfident that I could get a job like that, to be honest. I thought, I don't have any like traditional education. I'm probably not going to go back to school and study this. I do have a degree. I'm very lucky that I have a degree, but it's in media production. And I can tell you that's not really like any scientific degree or something like this. So really early on, it was very much like the community that got me going. Like you can see really early on, I attended PyLadies, and I've been in this community since then. I managed to do internships, and I did this summer of code, which sadly doesn't exist. And I got hired as a junior engineer. at Koja, which was awesome. I was a junior backend engineer. I was getting to program every day and people willing to pay me for it. It was honestly such a great feeling. But I didn't want to stop there because I knew, well, I was very confident that machine learning would be very relevant, not only for my own growth, but also the company's trajectory as well. So I set myself this goal of becoming an ML engineer. And I did that through boot camps that were like predominantly online. I did various courses through platforms like Uplimit. I did different courses on like how to work with LLMs. And you can see this all starts to cram into the last couple of years because this really ramped up because of the availability of learning material, as well as my motivation to learn it. And then you can see along the bottom here, I slowly started to get to advocate to work in a team that was touching on these topics. And as I got promoted, I managed to like switch into a role that was focused on this solely, because it's really great if you have the time and the energy after working a 40-hour week to learn on the side. But it's a lot better if you can get someone to pay you to learn this stuff, okay? So, you know, I will say I've put in a lot of my own hours into that, and I'm very lucky and privileged that I could do so. But I knew if I really wanted to go for this, I needed to work towards that. And I'm very happy to say I've actually just officially been given the title of Senior ML Engineer. So thank you. And I would encourage you all to come up and celebrate your wins with us as a community, because this is truly something that came out of this community. I always say that I'm self/community taught, and it's because of communities like this. Like PyLadies is my community, but like No Django Girls, for example, has like done wonders for other people. You find your people and let them support you. And the caveat, that's tiny text, sorry, but the caveat and what that says is that a lot of this was luck and privilege. And it really was, and I really want to point that out, that there's lots of people that have maybe done very similar things to me, and it was just not the right time for getting an internship in the industry. They just weren't in a company that was willing to support their growth. They didn't have a manager who would advocate for them to move into a different team. So like, yeah, I like put it out on a nice timeline and it looks great, but I think I really want to point out that there's like, that timeline will look different for everyone. And for me, I was very lucky. I wasn't a primary caregiver. I don't have a mortgage. I didn't have a lot of things that could have made this a lot more difficult than it was. So, oh, sorry, let me just go back. What this journey did teach me, though, was a lot of assumptions that I had right at the start of that timeline were not true. First of all, you don't need to know all the maths, right? Like, if you know all the maths, awesome. Like, I'm very happy for you, and I wish I had your brain. But in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, now I need to be super good at statistics, which was my worst subject at school. I'm really great at like linear algebra and like vectorizing everything. And I started trying to learn all of this, and I was like, oh my gosh, like how am I going to do this and like get anywhere? So you don't need that. You don't need a computer science degree. I really thought like, okay, I don't have a degree in this, so I'm not going to get employed, and that's good. I'm not going to hold worth as a developer just because I don't have a traditional background. Again, if you do and that's how you got in, then that is awesome, and I like really celebrate you. I think everyone's path is different. You don't need a PhD. I work with lots of people with PhDs, and I'll be honest, I feel intimidated because I wish that I could study at that level of education. I find it so fascinating. But I don't think that you need a PhD to be proficient in the field. You don't need to read all of the papers and understand everything that's in them. I like for a big time now felt very intimidated about like, oh, but I can't read a paper and put it into code. Of course, this is something that I'm working on, and I think it's something that's really great to be able to start to understand more about like the up and coming trends, and it depends on what exactly you're working on. But this shouldn't stop you. And also, you don't have to work in an AI-focused team. So like I told you, I moved into that. I advocated for that. I was lucky that I had sponsors to support me making that move. But I think that even if you don't work in a team today that's specifically an ML or an AI role, you can still get started. Conversely, what I think you do need is you need to be curious. You need to build things, like Anna showed us, and break them, find out how they work. And you should look for novel ways to apply it to your own needs. So find projects that really interest you where you're like, okay, can I use this thing for what I want to do? Like when I think about this, I think about Maria Jose's project, just to give her a wee shout out there, where she has worked on building a system for her plants and for watering. And originally that was like an IoT project, but then it became an ML project. And I don't know where it is today, to be honest. We need to get you back for another talk, I'm sure. But if you find something that interests you and then apply this to that use case, you're much more likely to stick with it. And if you're going to give your free time, then make it something you want to put your free time into. So the main message, and honestly, I couldn't say it better, so I'm going to use this quote from Misty Copeland because I think it is amazing. But the thing is that you can start late, you can look different, you can be even uncertain, and you can still succeed. So I really want everyone to know here that, like, if you're starting out, if you're not in these roles yet, but you're interested in it, it is possible. And the thing is that this industry needs us. It needs more people that look like me. It needs more people that look like you to work in this industry. The technology requires for us to understand it and use it as much as we need it. So as much as it is useful and can be used for us to progress in our career, this technology should be developed with a diverse group of people in mind. And we all know examples of where this is not happening. So I think it's really important to remember this. We need to be in the room and we need to take that space. So let's talk a little bit about generative AI. I think you've probably all seen all of these amazing and really compelling things that AI can do. I mean, you just saw the talk by Anna Paula, so you definitely have. But like, there's lots of other things out there of like image style transfer, which is what the images there show, or like creating videos from images, being able to create poems and all sorts. We've also seen quite a few faux pas. For example, the glue on the pizza incident from the Google Insta Answers, which is a funny and amusing and not by far the like worst example that I could have put up there. So we are seeing a lot of large language models being used for different uses. We're seeing a lot of companies. Some of them are like the big tech companies that we already knew, right? Like Meta, which was Facebook, Apple. But we're also seeing folks like Stability AI, who do the Stable Diffusion, and OpenAI, and NVIDIA, which has been around a while, but is like suddenly having this uprising in popularity. And if we look at a time map of the evolution of large language models and like this field in itself, we can kind of go back and see in like the 1950s where Alan Turing came up with the Turing test for checking like how machines are able to think, right up towards where in 2017 we have the introduction of the transformer architecture, which is some of the foundations for GPT models. And in between there, we can kind of see that it starts to really ramp up in these last, like 10 years, not even. So 2014, the word Tvec by Google is introduced. And then already now we're like, it's almost every 6 months, if not quicker, that we see bigger, larger, more performant models coming onto the market. It's not just new models that are coming out. As this advances and quickens, we're also seeing a lot of people start to raise concerns, and we're seeing the questions around ethics in AI, but also privacy and security. come up and be raised, and people really saying like, hey, wait a minute, let's take a closer look at this. So zooming in a little bit for the transformer architecture, because I think it's important to get a little bit of a high-level grasp of what is behind this black box of generative AI that we're talking about. So the transformer architecture is built around this idea of attention. And attention is all you need is the name of a paper where this was originally concepted. So it's essentially a type of artificial intelligence model that learns to understand and generate human-like text by analyzing patterns in large amounts of text data. So really taking in like what that means, it's like we need a lot of data, first of all, which if you work in machine learning or you work in a data field, you'll know it's always about the data. But essentially what it allows us to do is put something in and get something out. And like the output might be a translation, or it might be predicting what the next word is, or something else. And the thing that was really special about like transformers over other neural networks and like the models that had existed before them was they could pay attention to specific words, no matter how distant they are from one another. So if you're thinking about large corpus of texts and you're breaking up the text into like words or sentences, you'll know yourself. If you just see one word in the sentence, you probably can't guess what the rest of the sentence is. But now if you have a bit more context, you're able to have a pretty good go. I think the other important factor here is for this model or any model really to do anything, it needs to know it in a language it understands. So text is great for humans, right? We developed it. So I think we did a pretty good job of that. But for computers, at the end of the day, this is not a format, and images are not a format that they can readily kind of do these equations or computations on. So very important is that we're able to convert these into numerical data. And I'm going at a very high level, but I'll share resources at the end so you can like read through how all of this works if you're not familiar with it. There's like lots of great resources out there. But essentially what I want to portray here is that it's very important that before we pass stuff on, we put it in a format that our model can understand. And then, oh, I think this was, yeah, okay, sorry. I was like, wait a minute. So the title's the same, but the slide is different. And then what we look at is when we are going into a transformer model is that it has a specific components. So the attention mechanism is what allows the model to weigh the importance of different words in the sentence. So if you think about, you have a sentence, maybe it has 20 words in it, or that'd be quite a long sentence, I guess, but like if there's certain words that appear more frequently, maybe the like stop words like and, to, and so forth. So we need to find a way of being able to capture that context when we can analyze the sentence. And the other thing that the architecture involves is the self-attention. So each word in the input sequence can attend to every other word. So it's like this mapping of context. Like I said, a single word is quite difficult, right? It's like when you play, I guess, Wordle. I don't play it, but I assume this is how it works, is that you like start to get letters correct, and then you're like, oh, now I know what the word is. So being able to like make the connection between them is really important. And it also then is about position. So if a word is very close to another word, if it's like kebab shop, then we know it's a shop that has something to do with kebabs. Presumably, we can make a good prediction on that. Whereas if it is like completely of opposite ends of the sentence, then maybe they don't have as much relevance to one another. The transformers have like an encoder and a decoder, and essentially you can think about it if we like just go back to the here where we have the transformer and the black box. If if we would look inside this, what we would see, again, one layer deeper, is the encoder, which is taking the inputs and processing them and doing computation calculations on them, and then the decoder, which is taking that and doing the opposite, essentially, to get it back into a sequence, such as here, the word Python. And GPTs are the models which are like essentially built on this transformer architecture. So they're focusing on the generative aspect, and the way that they got started was with pre-training on a huge corpus of data. I think we all heard about like all of our data essentially just being taken because they were working on it before anyone knew, and then they would rather like not ask ahead of time and just be like, oh yeah, oops, sorry, we did that. And now, of course, the discourse is really whether that was legal, but also morally a good decision. But this pre-training allows it to have a huge amount of data, and through unsupervised learning, be able to understand very general facts like grammar, facts about the world, and have some kind of reasoning abilities. And then what happened is fine-tuning. So after this huge corpus of data, we start to look at trying to think about how to use it for specific tasks, and how we can label data to improve the performance on that task. So a lot of the time we'll take what's called a foundational model, which has had this very large corpus, and then we'll fine-tune it to create a model that is somewhat smaller, but is more scoped towards doing something like text generation or translation or summarization, or question and answering, and so forth. So I don't know if this phrase really translates very well, but in English, we kind of say, like, once you know how the sausage is made, you may or may not want to eat it. And I think the thing is that, like, you know, large language models are the sum of the parts. And I think it's very important to know how the sausage is made if you're going to go ahead and use it. And like, I'm not saying don't use it or do use it, but I think it's very important that you understand some element of like how they come together. Because the thing is, there are also a lot of limitations and ethical considerations. So thinking about bias that can be coming out of these models, which is predominantly coming from the training data itself. So, you know the phrase, if you put poop in, you get poop out. And we know that a lot of the way that data is collected and a lot of and it's also not about the data specifically that was collected, it's also about the data that was not collected and therefore is not represented in the training for these models. The misinformation, I mean, we laugh about like the hallucinations and stuff, but they can definitely come out sounding super confident about things that you think could be like, you know, yeah, maybe the Python standard library does have a la-la-do-do function. I don't know, but we really need to be mindful that we're validating and checking information. And also thinking about their impact and what can happen when we use them, like what message, if we're using it for users, what information are we giving to users? So some of the ways that I've been using generative AI while I've been programming or working, I'm predominantly focusing on text generation, by the way, because I work as an engineer, but I mean, I do use it often to create images for slide decks. So I think it's pretty good at structuring unstructured data. So I don't know if anyone's ever had to write a table in Markdown. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who's like, I need to transfer this information into this table in Markdown. So let me just sit here for half an hour with a coffee and I don't know, something, and like, it will do this super quick. So it's like, that's literally hours of my life that I do not regret missing. I do not miss them. So it's really good at this. It's very good at like repeat operations. So if you're doing one thing and then you need to do it over again and over again, maybe things like table tests, it's really good at being like, oh, this is what you're trying to do. Let me do that for you. Augmenting data. So this is like a little bit of you need to be careful of like what exactly you're creating. But if you have a data set and you don't have a lot of data, it could be a really useful way of generating more data. Be aware of it's not going to suddenly create some like new data that it's never seen before. Like remember, we know how the sausage is made. It has to have had examples in there somehow. But it can be a very useful tool. Query languages. So I don't know, does anyone here use Grafana? PromQL is their query language for their dashboards. I don't remember all of PromQL, but it's pretty good. I mean, it definitely hallucinates a lot, but it's pretty good at like giving you things for your dashboards. Formatting and reformatting. So if you have data in a certain structure and you want to move it to something else, it's very good. And also just brainstorming, like just kind of getting some of the ideas out there and having something kind of reformulate your own ideas, right? Because it's not really the same as brainstorming with a person, right? It definitely doesn't remove the necessity for that, but it can be quite useful if you're predominantly programming by yourself and you just want to, you know, I don't know, have someone listen to your thoughts rather than talking to yourself. And on the other hand, I have to say it's not great at meaningful, non-verbose, repetitive text. So watch your doc strings. It will not write code that you don't need to check. I mean, I think you're talking about that already, that you definitely want to do a code check. It's really good at inventing syntax that just doesn't exist. So there's kind of a minus point, although plus points for trying, if you know what I mean. And I definitely don't think it's going to do my job so that I can enjoy the sun, which is pretty sad because it was amazing today in Berlin. But do remember, using this tool, it is costly. It uses a lot of energy, and you are giving it more of your data. So as much as I think it's a great tool and I do use it, I'm also very mindful of like, can I run this in a isolated setup where I'm not just giving OpenAI all of my information? Is there a way to be able to like not just have this running all the time on my machine and have my laptop need to be charged 20 times a day? And what is that cost, monetary cost of this technology? I think AI, though, can benefit us. And I've joined this summer the Climate Change AI School, which I really recommend. They put all of their videos on YouTube, so you like don't have to sign up to the summer school per se, but they have so many interesting projects that they demonstrate. They show how it's used for animal conservation, energy prediction, which I'm sure is very relevant for our wonderful hosts today. Fossil fuel usage, you can use it for urban mobility, flooding prediction and other extreme weather events, and things like biomassing, which is pretty interesting for Ecosia because we have a lot of tree planting projects, and even some of we don't program that in-house, but it's being used that even satellite imagery can be used to kind of predict the health of tree planting sites. So as much as I think there's lots of novel uses, and I think it's great to explore them, there's actually very strong cases for us to be able to use this technology for good. And the summer school, again, I give them a huge shout out because they publish everything online. They have lots of tutorials. They're all like collab notebooks, which means you can run them in the browser on free hardware. And it's just such a great way to learn both the ML side of things, but also the climate science side of things. So I think I'm okay for time, but a few thoughts of mine. These are, I probably should put disclaimer, these are just my thoughts for developing projects with large language models or generative AI. Learn when it makes sense to use an LLM. So it is a good tool, but it's not the tool for every job. There are many more traditional NLP techniques that are still super relevant, even if they're kind of old and not sexy or don't have AI in the name. I think it's really, one of the things that I've learned is that it's really good to have a basic grasp of this so that you're able to maybe prototype quickly with a large language model, but then refer to something that is better suited to that job. Domain knowledge and insights is always going to be needed, and it all starts with the data. But as I mentioned, maybe it can help with this. So understanding the capabilities and the limitations, really consider the resource usage, define an evaluation method. So the scope of like a chatbot is huge, unless it's like a very specific chatbot. So you really need to have a way of deciding, is this doing what I want it to do or not? And that can get quite tricky in terms of like thinking about what is a good answer for how to, I've forgotten what the pizza glue question was, but I think it was about how to improve the topping of the pizza or something. And it's a very subjective question, right? Like probably glue is not the right answer, but it's also a little difficult to find exactly what is. It's also really hard to reproduce. So you have to bear that in mind when you're thinking about this. Prompt engineering or prompt manipulation and the parameters, I think always use the best model that you can afford, right? Like if you can afford to use GPT-4, use it because it's a lot better and it will save you a lot more time than trying to like configure a smaller model to do the same thing. Look into JSON formatting, look into templating your prompts. Give examples, so a little bit like end prompt rather than zero-shot prompting, end-shot prompting. So like give maybe a few examples of what you're expecting out, often goes a long way. Think about the length of your context, and also think about if you can use special tokens to denote certain things. So like breaking up part of your prompt, for example, to highlight certain parts can be really useful. Function calls, I'm going to skip over because I think we're going to hear a little bit more about that. We're talking about prompt engineering. Oh, sorry, function calls I'm going to skip, and then there'll be another talk coming up on the later in the month from Katya about. But essentially, like there are also lots of interesting things you can do there, and things like RAG, which is retrieval augmentation generation, which means getting basically more information to base the answer on. When it comes to deployment, think about if the model can be made smaller. There's lots of ways to like distill that information into a smaller model or optimize it for the hardware so that it's going to run more efficiently, like thinking if you need a GPU or a CPU specifically. A lot of that can do really depends on the job that you want to do, right? If you're doing like real-time classification or something like this versus maybe like batches of huge data, it might really make a difference if you want to parallelize that or not. Monitor. I think this is always a good practice, considering the cost, considering like how it's performing. Be cautious around the data privacy and the security. Think about where your data is stored, which data it can access. Like if you can run it on your local machine and it's not sending it out to some cloud device, is probably the best way to go. And think about what the data says about you or your user. So what I noticed is a lot of people talk with a chatbot a lot more openly than they talk with a search engine. And that data is then, not per se that we can then tell who you are from that, but you give a lot more away and you maybe don't realize just because of the nature of the way you're interacting. And the last one, which probably should be at the start as well, is design with feedback in mind. So I don't know if anyone here is a designer, but I think design has a huge part to play in LLM and AI products. And I think it's not being talked about as much as it could, because I think it's so important, first of all, that we're able to get those feedback loops so we can improve our models, But also it's really important that we communicate to users what they're seeing and why they're seeing it. And while things are exploding everywhere and all the job roles now are ML or AI engineer or whatever, I think it's really important to remember that even though it's big in our industry and it's trending and there's lots of people that have maybe not even worked in our industry but have heard about it, there's still a huge amount of people who don't know anything about this, and they don't know the tools, and they don't know the capacity, and they also don't know the limitations. So it's also our job to go out and educate and inform people. That might be our families, that might be our friends, about what they can do with these, because we as technologists, we have that understanding and we are best suited to do that job. So with all that being said, it can be a lot of fun, as we've seen in the first talk, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what we can do. So I hope you have a lot of fun. I will share my slides, which have a few links in the Meetup chat as soon as I have a chance. So thank you, everybody. And huge thank you to Linda, who on the stream let me know that everything was going well. So whew, that would have been bad. All right, we will switch over. So if you need to grab a drink, please do so very quickly because we're very on time.
Very on time. Awesome. Hi, everyone. That's what it was actually a perfect segue from Jessica to prompt engineering. So really excited to talk prompt engineering and especially techniques from the recent research papers. So a little bit about myself, and please connect on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter. If you have any questions, come up after the presentation, talk to me, or shoot me a message. I'm Katya. I'm a data scientist and machine learning engineer. I led data team at Silo, which was Andreessen Horowitz fintech startup. And before that, I was a founding data scientist at Picnic Health, which is a health tech startup, was backed by YC, Y Combinator. I'm also an AI advisor. I have a master degree in data science and machine learning. And before startup, I'm also a career switcher like Jessica. And before all of this, I was actually working in strategic finance at specifically in CFO suite at Bayer. So cool. Today we'll cover why prompt engineering, why it's important. And I also want to talk about 4 techniques I'll share with you. It's few short learning, reasoning with chain of thought, also abbreviated as COT. I'll talk a little bit about decomposition technique, plan and solve, and we will also cover chain of verification. So why prompt engineering? We heard today even a lot about hallucination, right? Raise your hand who is actually a skeptic to LLMs or large language model AI. Okay. Who of you encountered anyone at work who was rolling their eyes about LLMs and saying, like, it doesn't work, they are not ready for production, it hallucinated a lot? All of you, right? All of you, exactly. That's also what I also encounter a lot, right? People also say, oh, I use Chatgpt, it doesn't work, right? They just give up. And honestly, that's why this talk, because I want to share with you that all of this, or a lot of this, can be mitigated with prompt engineering, proper prompt engineering techniques. So I'm very excited to share with you a lot of these techniques, but first actually more to why prompts. Of course, it will lead to better results. Well, tell me more, right? But let me tell you, like, or remind you actually that large language models, in a very simplistic terms, they are the predictor of the next token, of the next word, right? And if you guys worked with ML, you know that for the predictor to make a better predictor, classification model or any ML model, you have a lot of levers, right? You can use more data, maybe hyperparameter tuning, maybe use another model. There is a lot of stuff we can do. Similar to LLMs, we can really go and fine-tune the entire model, or actually a lot of that can be done with prompt engineering. So usually prompt engineering is the first line of approach. Before thinking of anything else, try first prompt engineering. And prompts, what is it actually, right? Prompt is, in a very simple terms, is an instruction you give to a model so that the model will output the desired outcome, right? In very simple terms. So why? There is a bunch of reasons, and I listed a few for you. So as I said, always think about, you can do a lot with a proper prompt engineering before giving up, before fine-tuning, before any of the other crazy things people try to hack together. prompt engineering will increase performance. I don't have numbers here when I list on WISE, but across papers, I've seen numbers roughly about 40 to 50% increase in performance. Similar cost efficiency, probably I think was maybe 30%. So you can actually reduce the cost with prompt engineering so that you can use less tokens, thus cheaper. You can also enhance consistency. So LLMs are non-deterministic, meaning like one prompt will give you one answer and same prompt can give you another answer just the next time, right? So in this case, to really like massage the prompt, engineer the way that it's spill out the consistent results, that's the good way for prompt engineering. And of course, less hallucination, what we talked about, right? I think the number here was also around 50% reduction in hallucination. So basically the opposite, right? It's high accuracy of the factual checks. And very important for this group, bias mitigation. With a really good prompt engineering, we can reduce racial and gender biases. So really cool that it was also mentioned in, I believe in one of the papers I read. No, I don't remember which one, but I read a lot of papers for prompt engineering. Let me tell you, before actually the major paper and before sharing a little bit what cool stuff is in this paper, let me tell you about the components of the prompt engineer and components of the prompt, so you better understand basically what are the types of like what goes inside, right? So the very first one is an intent, so the directive, right? Basically, in the very simple term, we give an instruction, and that could be the entire prompt. That's not a good prompt. Tell me a good books to read, because this one doesn't know anything about you, doesn't know anything about your preference, but it's a directive, right? You can put in examples in your prompt. Examples called also short, right? So few short, I will be covering it in a few slides from now, means giving few examples, right? Here a translation example, night, die Nacht, morning, probably. I hope that a large language model will identify that it should be der Morgen. And output formatting. So you can, I think Jessica, you mentioned it, that you can really ask LLM for JSON formatting, for CSV, whatever you need for your specific task. I actually wanted to say a couple of words about Markdown. Markdown for prompts are very, very useful and powerful because LLMs were trained on a large corpus of internet data, right? And internet data has a lot of markdowns. So when you prompt with markdowns, right, basically highlighting maybe an directive or an examples, the LLM will understand it better. You can give style instructions. I love doing this, especially for writing emails or preparing any text, writing or summarization. Write a clear and concise paragraph, maybe even specify the numbers of paragraphs about whatever you are doing currently. And role. Role is very important part of prompt and actually very powerful technique on its own to assign a role before asking for a task, right? The example here is quite silly, but imagine you're doing a marketing campaign, right? And you need help from Chatgpt. What you would do is say you are a marketing assistant helping me with marketing campaign and blah, 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 give the details. additional information. So here, when we talk, for example, about the directive, right? Tell me about a good book. The additional information would be anything about you, what you want, the specifics of the book, right? You can also share, maybe tell me a good book about my friend who is this and that, and they have interest in whatever, right? So any additional information is also part of the prompt. So yeah, so that's exactly the paper of papers I mentioned. The name is the Prompt Report, a systematic survey of prompting techniques, which just came out basically in June 2024, so roughly a month ago. And that presents actually really a taxonomy of prompt techniques, right? They share 58 roughly prompt techniques and a lot more papers, right? So like they parsed papers and created this huge corpus of techniques. They also, I'm covering only text-based prompt categorization or prompt techniques today, but there are also a number of other techniques mentioned for video, audio, etc. So talking about the categories, here you can see 6 categories. And I really loved actually about this paper that it made everything like in my head more clear and structured, and I love structure. So it categorizes prompt techniques into 0 shot, in context learning, which is a few shot prompting, reasoning or thought generation, and I will talk about just one techniques, and there's much more, so please look at the paper if you're interested in more techniques for reasoning, self-criticism, categorization, and decomposition. So decomposition is basically when you have a complex task and you want to break it down. This is usually very mimicking actually how we humans solve tasks, right? If there's something very complex, we start breaking it down and then executing. So I'll talk about plan and solve at the end of the presentation, and there's a bunch of different ensembling techniques. I'm not covering it, there's just too many variation of all of this. But my goal today is to give you like overview of what is possible, what kind of techniques can be applied to mitigate. So it's to mitigate basically all of those issues we saw in a couple of slides before. And you don't need to memorize the technique, or like I just want you basically to know it exists. And next time you work with prompting, you work with LLM, go back and decide for yourself what kind of prompt you want to use. So let's start with few shot. So for few shot, as it clearly actually says that LLM learns from examples, right? So on the slide, I have an example where from a sentence, LLM should label emotions. So I give an example of I can't stop smiling after getting that promotion at work, and label is happiness. And the second sentence is tears roll down my cheeks when my best friend moved away, sadness. And with an actual task, a third sentence, I want an LLM to tell me the label, right? So this is classical classification model will be. The only problem is we can only hope that it will be happiness and not something else. I actually tried it out, and because there was no other prompt around, right? Like if you do write something for production like this, you need to clearly say like, those are the categories, only happiness and sadness. Choose only from that. The result out of this was joy, and then I basically asked again, choose from between happiness and sadness. So like even without labels, LLMs have so much knowledge that they can actually label something, not necessarily what you intended, but roughly, because joy is emotion to happiness. So talking about more about few shots. So who of you actually done or do any of ML work? Anyone ML folks? Okay, few. So in traditional ML, we usually think, oh, the more data, the better, right? This is not true for LLM. According to papers and research, we know that right now, roughly under 20 is probably the sweet spot, and you can just fine probably with around 5, to be honest. Like with my work, I think around 5 was more or less of the sweet spot. It depends on the task, right? If you have very complex tasks, maybe you have a lot of classification and categorization, then you want to use more examples. But usually under 20 is as a sweet spot. Order of examples matter. I think you mentioned this about the order or in the live presentation.
Someone asked that.
Yeah, in the live presentation, really went, and papers suggest that accuracy can flip from SAP 50 to 90 by just changing the order of an example. This is crazy, which really shows us that we should try it out, see what works, right? Not only like write the first text and see, oh, it didn't work. Okay, I'm gonna go and enjoy sun right now. Examples labeled the distribution can cause actually imbalanced data. So if folks from ML probably know that if you have imbalanced data, meaning the good example is in fraud, right? In fraud cases, you have a lot of examples of non-fraud, and then there's like maybe under 5% there is a fraud cases. We call this problem imbalanced data, and then machine learning folks like me, we're trying to apply smart techniques to actually run a good ML models. That can happen also in LLM, so really look for a good distribution of your data. That's important too. The label quality is unclear according to the research. They're saying like it might affect, might not. So really sounds like we need to look closely at it. Formatting matters a lot. I've seen presentation from Meta. They were actually even quantifying it by adding, I believe it was just a comma, change the results dramatically. So the most common format is question, column, answer column. But really, it might be that in your case, the example formatting might be better in JSON, if you're especially writing code. So everyone needs to take a look. And there's a lot of techniques actually to even generate example. Think about, again, in traditional ML, we have like sometimes thousands, millions of examples. Now, if we want to switch, let's say, from traditional ML classification to a large language model classification, we don't need this many examples, but it might be that on the spot when the query comes in, and let's say you have like a 30 categories. So what you want to do is actually feed into your prompt very similar examples as the query. So query will be transformed to embedding, and then with KNN as K nearest neighbor methodic, you can actually find the very similar examples and feed it an LLM. Was that clear? I see a lot of confusion. Questions? I can explain again. I think like KNN, VOV K might be quite complex techniques. There's also some neural net techniques like lens, but there's also a self-generated result that could work too. But that's probably also a lot more to cover and likely just another talk. So let's go to the next one, chain of thought. So that's where it starts a little bit complicated. So instead of just giving an example, we might not even have, right? Like sometimes we do have examples and sometimes we just want an LLM to do something for us. So what we can do is to encourage AI to show us I'm not sure the pronounce of LLMs, but yes, the models. Basically the thought process, right? So I think the third point shows exactly. And I mentioned it before, like as humans, we have this internal monologues, right? We can see the task, especially mathematical task, and start to reason about that, right? So before we go to the conclusion and solution, we usually reason in our head. So in this case, we can really tell them to do quite the similar, right? And examples of this prompt will be for the zero shot, let's think step by step. As simple as that. Or first, let's think about this logically. For a few shot, you can include examples of questions, reasoning step, and actually a correct answer. And I want you to show actually how that works in on the examples. This is the paper from Google Brain, chain of thought prompting. And on the left side, they have a mathematical question answer. The answer is 11. And then there is another question that LLM should solve. So now on the right side, you can see that in the A, before the answer, we added actually a reasoning, right? Roger started with 5 balls, 2 cans of tennis balls, each is 6 tennis balls, 5 plus 6 equals 11. And in this case, we have a right answer for our next question. This is pretty brilliant and very simple at the same time. So let's go to the next one, plan and solve. This is something what also we as humans do a lot, right? When we have a complex task, we try to decompose it first into the steps, and then we go and execute. Go ahead.
I have a question on the previous.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you change the question, the formatting of the question itself changes also the numerical scoring that is associated with it. So when we ask a question and you change the formatting of the question using different wording, using different things, does it also change at the end? So
the answer.
So we reach the
it
same.
might. It might. Like in this case, what you're saying, if you add, for example, a comma somewhere, yeah.
So have you seen this in reality? So what you do, you still like try it multiple times?
That's again like how I would approach it is always having a first initial prompt, right? Especially when you write for production, you have a prompt and you see the outcomes, you have some metrics, then you start looking at like what are the metrics. If you want to test with order or a formatting, you can change it and look at your metrics and on the test set, right? If that impact, if the outcome increased, performance increased, or actually decreased, and in this case iterate and think like, is formatting here a right thing to do or not necessary, or maybe it doesn't impact at all. My hunch that in this case, if we say like Roger started with 5 balls, I guess like what could we change?
maybe after the last 6 tennis balls, we do the column 5 plus 6 equal 11. I don't think anything will change in terms of the outcome. I think the answer would be still 11. I hope so, because in this case it doesn't matter much, right? But if you give examples of few short examples, and they might be formatted differently in one try versus another try, you might see outcomes, right? You might see improvement or actually a degradation of the model. So you need to really treat prompts not just like, oh, it's just text. It's your lever to really improve the model. It's part of the model, right, of the infrastructure.
Is there a sweet spot where we say, okay, we tried something like 5 times or 4, and this is our best model, or like, of course, there always the time pressure. But what is the, from your
I think that's a great question. So
Can you repeat the question? 'Cause I'm not
Of course.
sure if people hear it.
Sure. So the question was, what is the sweet spot of the model performance? How much do you try with different engineering techniques? This is a great question, and I think it's very similar. Like when I'm thinking about LLMs, I think how do we solve it in traditional machine learning? And in traditional machine learning, we usually like anything below 50% accuracy or performance. Any metric you have is, well, accuracy, right? Like some metrics actually under 50 is quite okay. Is not good, right? Then it's a random chance. So this is a good start to see how you can achieve higher performance. And usually you start with something very simple. And in this case, I would also just start with very simple first iteration of prompt, how you think and describe the task, see how the performance, what's the performance, right? And the metrics for LLMs are very different from traditional ML, right? It's not necessary accuracy anymore. There's a lot of more evaluation techniques, and it's a huge topic also probably for another talk. But basically you have a metric, right? And you start as a base metric, you want it to be like in a sweet spot somewhere, not lower than 50, but also it's always matters what is the reason for this LLM, right? If you put it into production to interact with users, you don't want to have a bad performance, right? Like you want it to be as close as, I don't know. And machine learning will also usually in traditional say like anything, below some 95% is not good. LLM is hard to judge, but it depends from case to case. Sure. Great questions. So let's talk about plan and solve. Decomposition. I think I said that basically it's sort of improved zero-shot chain of thought process. And it really fixes pitfalls of chain of thoughts. For example, like calculation errors or missing step errors. So how would you do it? For this technique for plan and solve, again, you just direct LLM to create a plan, break down the problem into subtasks, and execute the plan. And there's an example of how you can do it. It's not necessarily exact the same wording, not necessarily applied to your task, but that could be a good start, right? You can also do more complicated techniques. I've seen people, and I did it myself, like starting with, okay, those are the steps. And I want you to check this, for example. And then number 2, I want you to check this, right? Really describe steps of like how you would approach the task at hand by yourself, or how you would write an instruction to a colleague who will be maybe substituting you for this task, right? I have an example for this too. That's also a math example I took from the paper. And you see that there's a question, a math question, and there's basically no answer, but there's an instruction: extract relevant variables, which correspond to the numbers, numerical data, calculate intermediate results, pay attention to calculate, and common sense. And that looks like that was a successful prompt in this case. I'll give you a few seconds to read. Okay. So, and very last prompt technique of today is chain of verification. This is a very interesting technique. Might be probably most expensive from the other three. And the reason is that with chain of verification, you would need to call LLM multiple times, at least 3 in this case. It could be 4 depending on your design. So what is chain of verification? This is basically a self-criticism technique. It's really perfect for question and answer or text generation task. The paper gave actually scores, the fact score. So that's basically how factually correct the answer was. Went from 56% to 71, which is amazing. There was a number of significant reduction in hallucination as well. I didn't quote them because they really vary between different models. They started with a very small llama model to actually a bigger GPT model, and different techniques as well they used for hallucination metrics. So how it goes? There are 4 steps. So first, we establish a baseline. So we ask the question first. The second step, we create a list of questions to verify correctness. Actually, not us, LLM will do. So the second step, you ask the LLM to create questions. The third one is you execute the question. So you ask LLM to answer those questions that the LLM created. And the fourth one, based on the answers from step 3, you generate the text again. So let me give you an example. I think that was really interesting. The query was, tell me about the Mexican-American War. So the first, it generated baseline response. And I highlighted here in red something that is factually was not correct and corrected with those steps. So this step 2, the verification. LLM generates a list of verification questions to fact check the initial response. There's 3 questions, and in step 3, we ask LLM to actually answer those 3 questions. And last step, so here you see the baseline from step 1, and step 4 shows actually the correction of the year, right? Awesome. Some final thoughts. So as I said, really, when you start working with LLM, think of prompting and think of what kind of techniques or a technique could be great for your work. Or like it doesn't need to be Word, right? Like I also use LLM with Chatgpt, like daily perplexity, daily for anything, right? Like asking direction, best restaurants, correcting my emails, whatnot. Really a lot of stuff. Be very specific what you need, very detailed. What LLMs really don't perform well when there's a lot of noise. So try to reread your prompt, your text, remove all the noise. Like sometimes there was an examples in paper that people would write like, oh, just in case, blah, blah, there's an information. If it's not relevant, cut it out. write an initial prompt with tools like, I really love doing this with Anthropic's prompt generator. So you could type your initial, how you would write it, and then the prompt generator from Anthropics will actually provide you a much better prompt. I've seen this doing actually quite a lot of interesting techniques from papers I've seen, so pretty useful tool. And then once you have it and you run it on your test data, iterate. There's a bunch of also developer platform tools like Langsmith and Promptful. Both of them are open source. So really try it out, use some metrics, see if the prompting and different changes in prompt really improve your outcomes. That's pretty much it from my side. Okay. Do we have time for questions?
I think what we'll do for questions is, if you stay connected on the stream, we'll break and conclude the meetup, and then people, if you're okay, can approach you here in the space, just so that we can stop the stream and then it's a little bit more relaxed. So thank you everyone who joined online, and also it'll be on YouTube. So if you missed some bits, you can go back and check it out there, and find also previous meetups as well. Huge thanks to Kraken again for having us. It's such an awesome space, and also thank you so much for the food and drinks. Speaking of, there's lots left. So we have some time, you don't have to immediately leave. Please grab some bits and chat to your neighbor, find out what they learn, what you learn, or come and talk to one of the speakers. If you did enjoy this, we try and do monthly meetups, as we mentioned. So if this is your first PyLadies event, you're very welcome to join us more often. We'd love to see you. If you have something that you want to come up and present, also really welcome that. I think we shared before the speakers forum, but there's also a piece of paper over there with a QR code that you can scan. Thanks again to all the organizers that were here. Thank you to the speakers, and thank you also to all the audience members. So with that, we finished the meeting. And maybe just for those in the room, if you have cups or bottles, please don't just leave them where you are. Take them as soon as a bin at the front.